Okay, imagine this. The human mind, its consciousness, intelligence, and personality becomes downloadable into a neat little disc stacked between the bones of the spine and can be removed and placed into different bodies and genders. If the physical body dies, the disc can simply be stored away until a new suitable body comes. The possibilities are endless, and immortality is within reach. The only caveat, you must be filthy rich to afford different bodies. A little bit of existential dilemma there, but that's the premise of the Netflix original television series Altered Carbon. Based on the British cyberpunk novel of the same name, Altered Carbon shows a future world where human consciousness can be programmed and transferred into different bodies. The story follows Takeshi Kovacs in his detective work to solve a murder case and his quest to find his first love. As his tale unravels, so does this dark, violent world where his story is set. Also, brace yourselves for learning new words that make the Altered Carbon universe more compelling and visceral. The events of Season 1 happen in the futuristic, cyberpunk-themed metropolis of Bay City. Takeshi Kovacs is pulled out of his prison sentence, which he's been serving for 250 years so far. In this universe, it's possible to serve such prison sentences or longer thanks to the cortical stack, a disc implanted into the spine at the base of the neck. The cortical stack contains the digitized form of the human mind, called the Digital Human Freight, or DHF. Think of it as a hard drive that contains every bit of information about a person. Kovacs is put into a new sleeve, different from his past ones. After getting his bearings, he's welcomed by a woman named Ortega, who seems to want to know more about him. Kovacs is then accompanied to the Arium, a place above the clouds where the wealthy people live. Ortega brings Kovacs to the Sun Touch House, the home of the wealthiest meths, the Bancrofts. Kovacs learns that Ortega is actually a police lieutenant, and when he tells her who he is, she seems to become agitated about him getting revived. Miriam Bancroft leads Kovacs to her husband Laurens, who bought Kovacs' release and the sleeve he's in. The reason for Laurens bringing Kovacs to life? He wants him to investigate his own death. Apparently, shortly before Kovacs was revived, Laurens shot himself in the head right before his scheduled backup transmission. Laurens' DHF is backed up every 48 hours, so when he shot himself, he lost those 48 hours, and no one's the wiser to know what actually happened in that time frame. The police have closed the case with the verdict that it was self-murder, but Laurens believes otherwise. Laurens promises Kovacs a full pardon and vast wealth if he solves his murder, because Laurens just can't accept the verdict that he took his own life. Kovacs turns down the offer, but Laurens encourages him to wander first in the hopes of changing his mind. Kovacs is no ordinary person. He's the only remaining soldier from the Envoys, a rebel group from the past, known to have exemplary combat skills, a strong will to overcome repeated sleeve changes, and excellent discerning skills. In the present, Kovacs is haunted by the memories of his time with his fellow Envoys, especially with Quell, whose words he's taken to heart. Kovacs checks into the Raven Hotel, the city's most deliciously macabre lodging experience, according to its AI owner, Poe. There, Kovacs is attacked by a group of mercenaries led by Dmitry Kadman, who intends to kidnap him. Thankfully, Poe intervenes and controls the hotel to finish Dmitry and his group. Poe is proud to say he's licensed to protect his new client, who happens to be the first in many decades. After this incident, Kovacs realizes this may have something to do with Bancroft, which means someone doesn't want him investigating the murder. Before the night ends, Kovacs changes his mind and accepts Laurens' offer. The next day, Kovacs meets Prescott, the Bancroft's lawyer and liaison. Prescott brings Kovacs to Psychosec, the facility that houses the sleeves and clones for the Bancrofts and other meths. There, Kovacs learns more information about Laurens' murder. During that missing 48 hours, Laurens was recorded returning to Psychosec from Osaka after canceling a deal. Miriam kisses him on the lips as a greeting, and hours later, Laurens is seen coming home. Shortly after, he shoots himself in the head. After visiting the facility, Kovacs asks Poe to sort out all the recorded death threats aimed at Laurens. Kovacs isolates one threat that's similar to how Laurens died. From there, he identifies the suspect as Vernon Elliott, a former Marine who blames Laurens for what happened to his daughter. Lizzie, Elliott's daughter, has been assaulted to the point of mental breakdown. Elliott is keeping Lizzie's mind in a virtual environment, but sadly, she's too traumatized to speak. Kovacs also learns that Lizzie used to be a prostitute and that her mother, Ava, who is a hacker, is currently in prison. Kovacs realizes Elliott couldn't have killed Laurens because that would mean abandoning his daughter. After dealing with Elliott, Kovacs decides to go to the brothel where Lizzie used to work. There, he meets Anemone, who promises to help him find more information about Lizzie's case. With no more leads for now, Kovacs returns to the hotel, and there he finds Miriam waiting. She has the hots for him, and they spend the night satiating each other. Poe then informs Kovacs that a spy drone has been to his room and recorded his affair with Miriam. Right after that, Kovacs receives an invitation from Laurens to the banquet at Sun Touch House. Laurens says it's the perfect opportunity for Kovacs to question the attendee attendees who may have something to do with his murder. But Kovacs knows it's more than that. He's just spent the night with Laurens's wife, so he might as well get ready to face the husband's wrath. Kovacs hires Elliot for his backup. In return, Poe will rehabilitate Lizzie in her virtual environment. At the banquet, Kovacs observes, noting any suspicious behaviors from the attendees. He meets Ortega there, who has been invited to oversee a grisly gladiator match. Kovacs also meets Clarissa Severin, the meth who suggested that Laurens revive Kovacs and has taken a commission to find his stack. Meanwhile, Elliot does a side quest and infiltrates the security room to get more intel, as well as to recover Kovacs and Ortega's weapons. After the party, Kovacs returns to the brothel to meet with Anemone. Unfortunately, this meeting goes south, as Anemone drugs Kovacs unconscious, and then later she gets murdered. Through the haze, Kovacs finds himself inside the Way clinic, strapped to a gurney. He realizes his mind is connected to a virtual interrogation. There, he gets tortured by Demi, who's last known to have perished in the hotel. As it happens, Demi is double-sleeved, meaning his consciousness is put into two separate sleeves. Putting the same consciousness in multiple sleeves is considered illegal, but because Demi is working for someone powerful, he gets away with it. And Demi considers his other sleeve like a twin brother. The first Demi, who attacked Kovacs at the hotel, knows he's the last envoy. However, this Demi, whom we'll call the twin, keeps calling Kovacs Riker and accuses him of killing the twin brother. Amidst the torturous teeth-pulling, shooting, and burning, Kovacs recalls the training Quell gave him and the other envoys to endure virtual torture. Quell told him that the enemy was not the interrogator, nor the actions, but the despair it caused. She urged him to overcome the despair, to find the weakness, and take control of the construct so they could move on until the interrogation ended. In the present, Demi the twin is baffled with how Kovacs can endure the inhumane acts he's doing on him. He brings out his last but lethal resort, the Helminth Code. These are parasites that can cause complete mental breakdown. The technicians say the last woman they used this with lost her mind. But Kovacs manages to overcome this by taking over the construct and making it look like his heart stopped. He finally wakes up and tells the technicians he's a CTAC officer investigating the brothel for illegal activities. Then Kovacs breaks out of his restraint, shoots the technicians and Demi the twin, and then he proceeds to murder everyone else in the clinic. Meanwhile, Ortega celebrates Dia de los Muertos with her family. To make things fun and controversial, she recovers her late abuela's DHF and temporarily puts it inside a new sleeve, which happens to be that of a Russian gangster. Ortega's mother is horrified at this abomination, but the abuela and the children are having fun with their situation. Their conversation, filled with the mother's conservative rants, reveals another compelling plot in the story. Ortega's mother is a conservative Catholic. That's why she greatly opposes Proposition 653. But Ortega looks at it as a police officer, and she sees this as a great tool to bring justice for the murder victims. After their controversial dinner and returning the sleeve to the police station, Ortega receives a report about the massacre that happened at the Way clinic. She arrives at the crime scene and deduces that Kovacs did all of this. She then proceeds to the Raven Hotel to confront him. Instead, it's Kovacs who questions her about why Demi the twin referred to him as Riker. Ortega then reveals that Kovacs' current sleeve used to belong to her former lover, Elias Riker. According to Ortega, Riker was investigating the death of his childhood friend named Mary Lou Henchy. Mary Lou wasn't allowed to be spun up because of her apparent religious coding, but Riker believed there was a conspiracy here, as he knew Mary Lou wasn't a religious person. In the end, Riker was accused of murdering a CTAC officer and was put into prison. In the present, Ortega has been looking after Riker's sleeve until Laurens Bancroft bought it to become Takeshi Kovacs' new sleeve. Kovacs reveals to Ortega that Demi the twin told him he framed Riker for the murder, and that was why he was so intent on torturing him. But he had no idea that someone else was occupying Riker's sleeve, and yet the first Demi who attacked Kovacs in the hotel knew. Kovacs believes there must be a connection between the case Riker was investigating and the Bancroft case. He gives Ortega the decapitated head of Demi the twin and orders her to spin him up and interrogate him. Then, Kovacs goes to Suntouch House to confront Laurens about the religious coding conspiracy. Instead of Laurens, he finds Miriam there. She offers to double Kovacs' pay if he would go with her to her private island so they can continue their affair. Kovacs says he'll consider this before leaving and returns to the hotel. At the hotel, Poe gives him valuable information that can move the Bancroft case forward. Kovacs tells Ortega about this, and together they proceed to the Fight Drome, a fight club that prides itself on live broadcasts and no recordings. This is run by an AI named Carnage. According to Poe, Carnage has kept footage of Laurens Bancroft entering the premises. Kovacs and Ortega demand Carnage show the footage. In it, they see Laurens entering the club and beating his son Isaac. After seeing it, they decide to go to Isaac's house to investigate further. There, they discover a clone of Laurens and the equipment that allows Isaac to create the clone. They deduce Isaac must have been posing as his father, giving him a great motive to end Laurens' life. The police confiscate the equipment, and Ortega invites invites Kovacs to her house to treat his wounds. Overcome by their physical attraction to each other, they become lovers. After the act, Ortega gives more information about how Mary Lou Henchy died. Ortega says she fell from a great height. Her body was recovered but was never allowed to be resurrected due to her supposed religious coding. Ortega also shows a picture of the so-called Ghost Walker, a person she saw at Bancroft's party and has deemed suspicious. The reason why he's named Ghost Walker is because he can make himself invisible to regular electronic surveillance. Kovacs and Ortega return to the police station to interrogate Dimi the twin, who has been resleeved into the Russian gangster. However, the interrogation is stopped by the police commander, Captain Tanaka, much to Ortega's disappointment. She insists on having 5 minutes with Dimi in the virtual interrogation room, which Tanaka reluctantly allows. Ortega and her partner, Aboud, escort the resleeved Dimi inside the elevator. Kovacs sees another officer entering with them, and he's horrified to see it's the Ghost Walker. Unfortunately, Kovacs is too late to stop the carnage. The Ghost Walker gravely injures Ortega and breaks her arm. Then he blows up Aboud's stack, killing him permanently. The Ghost Walker manages to get Dimi out of the station before Kovacs can catch them. Kovacs brings Ortega to the hospital and pays for her bill, including replacing her damaged arm with a powerful cybernetic one. While she recovers, he goes to the Bancrofts to expose Isaac and his cloning scheme. However, Isaac insists he never intended to kill his father. He only did the cloning thing because he wanted to prove himself to his father. It's revealed that it was Isaac who went to Osaka, posing as his father, to make that deal. But later, Laurens himself went too to cancel the deal. Then he followed Isaac to the fight drome, where he beat him. What happened during the intervening hours between that and Laurens' murder still remains a mystery. Kovacs realizes that a son who wants his father's approval will never kill him. Therefore, Isaac is not a suspect in his father's supposed murder. Laurens accepts this conclusion. He thanks Kovacs for the update, and then he turns his anger to his clone by violently mutilating it. Kovacs returns to the hospital to check on Ortega. Captain Tanaka also comes, bringing expensive flowers as a way to say sorry for Aboud's death. Just from the flowers, Kovacs deduces that Tanaka has been heavily bribed by someone powerful to allow Dimi and the Ghost Walker to escape the police station, not to mention covering for the meths who are involved in several murder cases. Ortega decides to test her new cybernetic arm by beating Tanaka. The corrupt officer reveals he's scheduled to meet the meth who bribed him. Kovacs and Ortega leave the hospital to intercept this meeting. In a VR cafe, Kovacs volunteers to talk to the meth. It turns out it's Hemingway who's been bribing Tanaka. It's curious how Hemingway seems to recognize Kovacs as the Envoy. But before Kovacs can make sense of it, they get ambushed by someone. Kovacs is horrified to see his old sleeve attacking them. It turns out this is the sleeve that Dimi transferred to earlier. Dimi drags Kovacs and Ortega back to Fight Drome, where they are forced to participate in a fight-to-death match. Dimi injures them using poisonous blades, but in the end, they overpower him. Ortega finishes him off for good by crushing his DHF. Carnage, who's not happy about the results, releases more enhanced sleeves to finish Kovacs and Ortega off. It's at that point that a mysterious warrior suddenly appears and kills the enemies and the guards. Ortega tries to protect Kovacs, but she's too weakened by the poison. The warrior removes her mask, revealing herself to be Ryleen Kawahara, Takeshi Kovacs' sister. When Kovacs wakes up again, he finds himself inside Ryleen's apartment, though he's still delirious from the poison. Ryleen gives him the antidote, and after a while, Kovacs is well enough to ask his sister how she's still alive. Since the Envoy's annihilation, Kovacs has always believed his sister never survived. That's why it's so disorienting to see Ryleen in the flesh and seemingly doing well with her life. Through a flashback, Kovacs' past is revealed. He and Ryleen were originally from Harlan's world, another habitable planet governed by the Protectorate. The siblings grew up in an abusive environment with a timid mother and a domineering father. One day, they witnessed their father end their mother's life and dispose of her body. Unable to bear it, Kovacs shot his father dead. Kovacs was captured by the Colonial Tactical Assault Corps, or CTAC. Inside the virtual interrogation room, CTAC officer Jaeger offered Kovacs to be part of the team. Jaeger assured Kovacs that his sister Ryleen would be raised in a safe family. Eventually, Kovacs accepted. With the CTAC training, Kovacs became one of its elite soldiers. Years later, he joined a raid to bring down a large group of Yakuza. It was there that he met Ryleen again, but she had become a mercenary, a foot soldier for the Yakuza. In truth, Ryleen was never put in a safe home. She was abandoned, left to fend for herself. In a heartbeat, Kovacs changed allegiance. He murdered Yakuza members as well as his fellow CTAC soldiers. After that, he and Ryleen escaped to the forest. There, they were captured by the Envoys, and they met the infamous leader, Quellcrist Falconer. The siblings decided to join the group, but as time passed by, only Kovacs became more supportive of the group's cause while Ryleen was filled with doubt. Another factor adding to her growing resentment was the fact that her brother was falling for Quell. Kovacs and Quell had a short affair, in which she revealed she was the one who created the cortical stacks. She believed humans deserved to live longer lives to explore the uncharted territories. But seeing how humans had used her creation for their selfish needs, thus leading to the birth of meths, she had become disillusioned. That was why she created the Envoys, to rebel against the meths and end their greediness. Quell gathered everyone to tell her of the uprising, her last act to stop the meths from their pandering. She intended to hack the Protectorate's core that houses the DHF signals and reprogram it to limit the lifespan to 100 years. Essentially, she wanted to put a stop to the resurrection process and make sure everyone will eventually die. But before the uprising, their base, called the Stronghold, was attacked by CTAC. Kovacs, Quell, and Harlan were the only ones left. Quell and Harlan tried to flee, but Kovacs unfortunately saw their ship get blown to pieces. Thus, Kovacs remained the lone survivor of the Envoys. He became a kill-for-hire afterwards, until he was apprehended by Jaeger in a violent bust operation. Kovacs' stack was stored away to serve his term, up until the present, when Laurens Bancroft pulled him out. Now, Harlan explains that her stack and some genetic material were miraculously saved by a stranger. She's worked hard until she became a meth herself, and has become a titan in the industry. Kovacs is still reeling from recovery and Harlan's tale. He explores the apartment, and in one room he makes a startling discovery. He sees the sleeves of Clarissa Severin and Hemingway, which implies that Harlan has been changing sleeves to manipulate people. Kovacs realizes that Harlan actually betrayed the Envoys by going to the CTAC and revealing Quell's plans. As a reward, the CTAC offered her wealth and a remote backup. What really happened in the minutes before their ship was blown? Harlan held a device that allowed her to transmit her consciousness to a satellite, leaving Quell to perish in the ship. Kovacs confronts his sister about her treachery. Harlan says she didn't support Quell's idea of death. She wanted to live more than 100 years. She has amassed wealth and power as a meth so that one day she can support both of them once he gets revived. She reveals she owns the Way Clinic, where victims are tortured for information, and the high-class brothel head in the clouds. Harlan orders Kovacs to close the Bancroft case, as it's become a dangerous loose end to her business. When Kovacs refuses, Harlan threatens the lives of everyone around him. She calls Leung, who has known all along about Harlan's actions and still remains loyal to her. Kovacs has no choice. He requests that Ava Elliott be spun up, as he needs her hacking abilities for his plan. Ava is Resleeved, but inside a man's body. Kovacs brings Ava home, much to Elliott's surprise. Ava also reunites with Lizzie, who has progressed immensely thanks to Poe's ministrations on her. Poe also taught her self-defense so she can protect herself. Kovacs asks Ava to edit footage to make it look like Laurens was entering a brothel run by an AI. As insurance, Poe infects the AI that runs the brothel with the Rawling virus. So this, combined with the edited footage, makes it look like Laurens was infected too. Kovacs goes to the Sun Touch house and presents this to the Bancrofts. Then he implicates Prescott as the suspect, saying that Prescott pressured Laurens to end his life to prevent the virus from spreading to his backup. Prescott is unfairly fired, and Laurens keeps his promise to give Kovacs his full pardon and vast wealth. For the Bancrofts, the mystery of Laurens' murder is finally solved, though none of them knows about Kovacs' made-up story. Meanwhile, Ortega has also recovered from her injuries. She manages to track the warrior who took Kovacs from the Fight Club. She enters Psychosec, which houses Harlan Kawahara's clones. The clones all wake up and attack Ortega. In her defense, Ortega kills all the clones. Later, Ortega steps into the Raven Hotel, seemingly wounded. Kovacs takes her to his room, but he realizes that Harlan is wearing Ortega's sleeve. Harlan confirms it and adds that she's holding the real Ortega hostage. And, as revenge for Ortega killing her clones, Harlan has sent Leung to annihilate her family. Kovacs tries to save them, but he's too late. Filled with resentment for what his sister has done, Kovacs hatches a plan. Initially, he didn't want to involve Poe and others for their safety, but he relents when they refuse to leave him. So this is what Kovacs has planned. Using the stolen cloning equipment, Kovacs makes a clone of himself. This clone will make sure to drop Harlan's guard against him. The clone will also lure Leung away from the hotel by making sure Leung sees the clone enter Miriam Bancroft's car, seemingly accepting the blissful offer in her paradise. The real Kovacs, together with Elliott, will infiltrate the head in the clouds. From what they know, the brothel caters to the meth's pleasures, no matter how specific or morbid they are. Elliot enters as a patron, serving as a distraction so Kovacs can enter undetected. So far, the plan has worked, but they soon discover that Head in the Clouds is a murder haven for the psychopathic and freaky meths. The place offers all kinds of prostitutes, from women, men, everything in between, and children. And the worst of all, murder is allowed here. This explains why Harlan has been bribing Tanaka to cover up the murders in her brothel to protect protect her client's interests. Kovacs manages to infiltrate his sister's apartment and infect her with the Rowling virus just as she transmits her backup to her remote satellite. With all of her clones dead and her backup gone, this means Rylene only has her current stack and sleeve to live by. Kovacs forces Rylene to confess. Finally, she admits to manipulating everything from the start. Her main goal was to prevent the passing of Proposition 653 because allowing the murdered prostitutes to be re-sleeved would reveal Rylene's criminal operations in her brothel. Since Laurens Bancroft had more influence than her, she set him up. She asked Miriam to infect her husband with a virus that can cause an uncontrollable crazed state. After Laurens returned from Osaka and was kissed by Miriam, he went to the head in the clouds. In his crazed state, he murdered a prostitute. The other woman, who happened to be Mary Lou Henchy, witnessed the crime. Mary Lou chose to jump off of the brothel in the hopes she could be spun up to testify about the crime. But she didn't know that Rylene coded her stack with the religious coding. Rylene actually did this to all her employees to prevent them from ever testifying. Then she blackmailed Laurens into opposing the passing of Proposition 653. Unable to bear the guilt, Laurens pulled the trigger and blew his stack up before his backup transmission. But Laurens was also prideful and would never accept the fact that he took his own life. So Rylene, using the Clarissa sleeve, manipulated him into reviving Takeshi Kovacs. That way, Rylene could be with her brother again. Kovacs feels weak after knowing his sister's crimes, but there's no time to reflect. Leung has returned and turned the tides in Rylene's favor. Apparently, he's been torturing Ortega repeatedly in the virtual room all this time. Kovacs, Elliot, and Ortega are held hostage, and Rylene orders Leung to capture Ava and eliminate Poe. Leung successfully infects the AI, but before Poe fully disintegrates, he meets with Lizzie. Now that she's restored and has learned to fight, Lizzie convinces Poe to send her up to the brothel's network so she can save everyone. Poe agrees, making this his last action before perishing. Meanwhile, Tanaka responds to the massacre report at Ortega's residence. Seeing the grisly state of the children makes him finally choose the right thing to do. Prescott helps him by pointing to where he can find Ortega and the others. Back in the brothel, Lizzie has downloaded herself into a synthetic body. She knocks out several guards, meets with her parents, and together with them, she proceeds to the control room to shut down the main power. Ortega clashes with Leung. Just as the police arrive, she gains the upper hand and brutally rips the stack out of Leung's spine. Kovacs is left with Rylene. He realizes his sister is beyond saving. Rylene, hoping to sway her brother, reveals that Quell is still alive and only she knows where to find her. Still, Kovacs pulls the trigger, destroying Rylene's stack. The brothel continues its descent while its inhabitants flee. In its finality, Head in the Clouds crashes onto the sea. In the aftermath of the events, Laurens Bancroft is arrested for his crimes. Miriam is apprehended too. It turns out Lizzie wanted to tell Laurens that he got her pregnant, but she met Miriam, who kicked her repeatedly, causing her miscarriage. Then Miriam ordered Prescott to send Lizzie to the Way Clinic for torture. There, the parasites were used, causing her mental breakdown. As for Kovacs, his clone is discovered and apprehended. Kovacs will be given a full pardon, but only one between the clones will be left alive. In the end, the original Kovacs remains, but at least he retains the memories from that blissful paradise. He goes to Ortega, telling her he's giving up Riker's sleeve. Since it's proven he's innocent, Riker will be pulled out of prison. There's no more reason for Kovacs to stay with Ortega. Kovacs plans to cross worlds to verify if what Rylene said is really true, that Quellcrist Falconer is still alive. Season 2 takes place 30 years after the Bancroft case. Kovacs is in another world wearing a new sleeve. Poe, it turns out, has not been completely obliterated by Leung. He has put himself back together to assist Kovacs in his quest to find Quell. However, this doesn't remove the virus that infected Poe, causing him to glitch from time to time. A bounty hunter named Trep is looking for Kovacs. She's been hired by a meth named Axley to capture the last envoy. When Axley meets Kovacs, he offers the envoy a job to protect him, giving Kovacs a military-grade sleeve. Kovacs accepts, but when he wakes up, he finds that Axley and his whole security detail have been murdered. And this is not just a sleeve murder. Even the backups are fried completely. Realizing this will turn into a bigger mess, Kovacs flees. From his surroundings, he deduces that he's in Harlan's world, his original home. Harlan's world is one of the planets governed by the Protectorate. Its main industry is mining and shipping the valuable resources needed to create the cortical stack. The planet used to be ruled by Conrad Harlan, one of the early humans who came and conquered, thus the planet's namesake. In the present, his daughter Danica is the planet's governor. Currently, Danica is working to keep the peace by negotiating a ceasefire, as another group of rebels has emerged, disrupting the planet's industry. This rebel group is called the Quellists, branding themselves as revivalists of Quellcrist Falconer's ideologies. The current leader is named Joshua Kemp. In Danica's mind, that's one problem taken care of, but she has other, more compelling problems. One is that the Protectorate has sent Colonel Carrera to assist in dealing with the insurgents. The other one is rooted in legends from when the planet was first founded. Danica is looking for ways to control the Angel Fire, an ancient weapon found found on the planet. Back to Kovacs, he decides to seek help from the meth named Tanaseda Hideki, a Yakuza boss for whom he did a favor once. Tanaseda welcomes Kovacs and allows him to take Hotel Nevermore, the same hotel where Kovacs was apprehended by Jaeger before. Poe refurbishes the hotel, although it's clear he's starting to struggle against his glitches. In his room, Kovacs muses about what happened with Axley. His memories are telling him that someone was involved in the murder. Using his training as an envoy, Kovacs tries to recall and clarify the hazy events. To his surprise, he finds out that Quell was there when the murder happened. Kovacs decides to look for the bounty hunter who tracked him. With Poe's help, he uses the same method as when he first found Vernon Elliott. But Poe glitches, and Kovacs is disappointed. He suggests that Poe must reboot, but the AI refuses to listen. Eventually, Kovacs finds a lead, and he leaves the hotel. In Axley's residence, Carrera forcefully takes over the investigation. Then he barges into Danica's office, where she's meeting with other meths and informs them about Axley's real death. He presumes the quellists have something to do with it, and that the meth killer is currently using a wedge, a military-grade sleeve specifically made for him and his team. Danica is annoyed that the soldier has found another reason to stay on the planet. She orders Carrera to find the meth killer soon, but the other meths are worried that Axley's death will become public. Dugan is especially afraid, and he tries to convince Danica to contact her father, Conrad, but Danica reminds him that Conrad had joined the Renouncers. This is a semi-religious group of people who, as it says in the name, renounce everything: wealth, contact with friends and families, and living in the physical world. Basically, Conrad just wants to live away from everybody else, and Danica wants to respect that. She's now the governor of Harlan's world, and she's showing that she's very much capable of leading it. Meanwhile, Kovacs finally finds the bounty hunter, whose name is Trep. He demands her to reveal all the information she knows about Axley, and him hiring her to find Kovacs. The only valuable information she gives is that Axley was in cohorts with two other meths, Anton and Haruki. Kovacs tracks these two, but before anything else, Quellcrist Falconer arrives and proceeds to murder the meths. Although he believes that someone may be using Quell's sleeve, Kovacs allows her to go. When she leaves, Carrera arrives to apprehend Kovacs. Carrera brings Kovacs to Danica. Kovacs remains insolent, not answering their questions about what he used to murder the meths. Danica sentences Kovacs to the Circle, a televised gladiatorial event. Carrera extracts information from Kovacs' memories, and that's when he realizes that the stack using this sleeve is Takeshi Kovacs. To Danica, Carrera tells her to permanently kill him, as the presence of the last envoy on the planet may encourage the quellist. But Danica ignores him. To Kovacs, Carrera reveals himself to be Jaeger, his former mentor, and he's going to make sure Kovacs will suffer before meeting his end. Kovacs is sent inside the arena where the circle happens. Everyone on the planet watches the broadcast as the meth killer is about to fight for his life. Poe sees this. Worried, he tries to get help from the planet's AI union management. However, all AIs are archaeologists who've been set aside since there's no more need for them. He manages to get the help of Dig 301, and together they plan to help Kovacs by sabotaging the power grid. They have a hard time doing so, while Kovacs has started to fight with synthetic bodies that bear the faces of those close to him. He had to fight synthetic Elliot, Ortega, and Rylene, but before he can fight a synthetic Quellcrist, the real one shows up, disrupting the match. Everyone is flabbergasted. It's unbelievable that the leader of the envoys is still alive until now. To make things more confusing, someone in the control room, who happens to be a Quellist sympathizer, cuts the power in the arena. This allows Quell and Kovacs to escape. Due to the confusion and shock factor of the circle, people are not sure about what they've seen. The Quellists are becoming more bold with their actions upon seeing the last envoy escape. Danica orders Carrera to apprehend Kovacs and Quell. Seeing the anger on her face, Carrera obliges. To one of his soldiers, Carrera orders the activation of Project Evergreen. Kovacs and Quell take refuge at Nevermore. Quell seems to be having trouble with her memories. At the hotel lobby, Trep compromises the security Poe placed. Kovacs is not happy about this since he knows it's because of the AI's worsening condition. He fires Poe to make a point about his reboot and hires Dig as a replacement. Then he goes to Trep to reconsider the partnership in bounty hunting that she first offered him. In return, he'll help her find her missing brother, Anil Imani. Trep accepts the deal. Danica wants to let the people know that everything's still fine, so she proceeds with the preparation for the holiday called Harlan's Day. She also puts strict measures on transmission stations in case the criminals would want to get off the planet. Dugan, who is actually among the people who were with Harlan when they first landed on the planet, is losing faith with Danica's decisions. Still, he remains on the planet to watch after her. Later, during the evening celebrations, Tanaseda crashes the party and approaches Danica. He asks permission for 2 people to transfer out of the planet. Danica gives him the permission, not knowing it's for Kovacs and Quell. Earlier, Kovacs had met with Tanaseda and asked for help to get them out of the planet. During the highlight of the party, Danica leads the launching of the celebration fireworks. Unbeknownst to everyone, strapped in the 5 rockets are the technicians who were involved in the power outage during the circle. Well, Danica thinks she's saving them because their other option is getting tortured by Carrera. The fireworks display also reveals that Angel Fire is a laser defense system fired by the orbitals that surround the planet. No one has ever managed to control Angel Fire, but Danica is resolute to find ways. Away from the celebrations, Quell strikes again. She permanently kills Tanaseda and, later on, Dugan, and erases all their DHF backups. Then, to prevent the other targeted meths from leaving the planet, Quell blows up transmission stations and disables interstellar travel. Kovacs goes to Tanaseda's residence and reviews what remains of his DHF. He discovers that Quell is actually targeting the original founders of the planet: Axley, Anton, Haruki, Dugan, Tanaseda, and Conrad Harlan. Conrad is the only one remaining, but no one knows where he actually is. Meanwhile, Carrera is pleased that Project Evergreen is complete. This project is about reviving the original sleeve of Takeshi Kovacs, with his memories up until before he betrayed the CTAC. Since there are now 2 Kovacs from this point on in the story, we'll refer to the current Kovacs as Kovacs and the original sleeve as Takeshi. Carrera tells Takeshi lies about the other Kovacs, making it sound like Takeshi is the original and Kovacs is the clone. Carrera also mentions Kovacs fatally shooting his sister Rylene, and Rylene is a soft spot for Takeshi. It doesn't take time for Takeshi to solidify his loyalty towards Carrera. Immediately, he starts tracking Kovacs and Quell. Eventually, Takeshi traces them back to the Nevermore Hotel. At the hotel, Kovacs decides it will be better if they return to the Stronghold. They are still mystified about why Quell is targeting the Founders. Perhaps going back to the Stronghold, the first base of the Envoys, will help her jog her memories. Or they may meet Kemp along the way and hope for him to take them in since Quell is with them. Trep decides to go with them since she knows her brother was last seen joining the Quellist. Poe volunteers to enter VR in the hopes of finding Conrad while Dig remains in the lobby. Kovacs, Quell, and Trep leave the hotel just as Takeshi and his team blast their way through the hotel's front doors. Takeshi overrides Dig's programming until he finds out where his targets are. Kovacs and the 2 women arrive at the Stronghold, where Quell gets disoriented by the disjointed memories returning. Kovacs leaves them for a while. Quell takes this chance to knock Trep out and escape. Kovacs and Takeshi finally meet. A skirmish ensues, and unfortunately, Kovacs gets thrown off the cliff. Back at the VR, Poe realizes Conrad is not there. In addition, the whole VR construct has been paid for by Danica Harlan to make sure the story about her renouncing father will remain consistent. In her office, Danica meets with the meths and asks for their votes to enact Provision 532, which will give her absolute power over the planet. Everyone votes for her except for Carrera, who knows this is a power grab. And he's right, because Danica's first order is to put the meths under house arrest. To Carrera, Danica gives the directive to shoot Kovacs and Quell on site and deliver their stacks. Quell, after escaping from Trep, proceeds to the lake where she and Kovacs first made love with each other. It's there that Takeshi finds her, acting like he's the Takeshi Kovacs that she knows. Takeshi makes sure his transmitter is on so Carrera can still give orders to him. Maintaining his act, Takeshi accompanies Quell to the underground, right to the place where Rylene left her. Quell knows the place has holographic surveillance, so she plays it for Takeshi to see. It's like unraveling the future that Takeshi has yet to have, that the original Kovacs has already experienced. Takeshi sees his sister admitting to betraying the envoys and regretting that Quell was with her when the backup started instead of her brother. Rylene has always seen Quell as someone who took her brother away, never realizing that it was actually her who betrayed Takashi. So, after the annihilation of the envoys, Rylene left Quell there, awake and suffering for hundreds of years. In the other parts of the forest, Trep looks for Kovacs and manages to rescue him from the cliff. After defeating 2 soldiers who were with Takeshi, they happen to meet with Kemp and his followers. They all return to Stronghold, where Quell has realized that Takeshi is not her Kovacs. Quell proves herself to the Quellists, and Trep is allowed to be free while Kovacs and Takeshi remain tied. The clones take this time to really talk it out. Kovacs points out that it was Jaeger, now in Carrera's body, who ultimately betrayed him, and Rylene was the ultimate byproduct of that betrayal. Finally, Takashi understands what Kovacs went through. Just like what Kovacs did before, Takeshi changes alliances. Meanwhile, Trep asks Kemp about her brother Anil. Kemp says he has no idea, but Trep spots the stack that bears their family crest, which she assumes belongs to her brother. She realizes Kemp is fooling them, and after forcing him, he reveals he's working for Danica Harlan. The Quellist, the revival of the rebellion, and the supposed ceasefire are all Danica's charades to control the shipment of resources, thus manipulating their price. She wants to let every planet know that Harlan's world controls the most valuable material in the universe, something that her father was too complacent to do. In the headquarters, Danica discovers Carrera's project of double-sleeving Takeshi Kovacs. A quick review. Double-sleeving is where the same mind occupies 2 or more sleeves, which is illegal. Danica has him arrested, and then she orders the soldiers to go to the Stronghold. The soldiers intercept Kovacs, Quell, Trep, and Takeshi as they make their escape. To their horror, Angel Fire is activated and it seems to respond to Quell's distress. Trep is also affected as she clutches the neural coils in her head. The lasers easily annihilate the soldiers. After this, Quell's sleeve starts to break down. Leaving Takeshi in the forest, Kovacs and the others take refuge in Trep's bar. Poe and Dig also meet them there. Poe reports about not finding Conrad in the Renouncer's VR. Dig studies Quell's DHF and discovers the red unknown markings embedded within. These are the same markings Trep found in her brother's stack, as well as what Kovacs saw in Tanaseta's VR. Trep decides to enter her brother's stack in VR to know the truth. It's then revealed that Anil was the first person to discover Quell. Unfortunately for him, he was infected by whatever has been hacking Quell's DHF, and his mind wasn't strong enough to overpower it. Trep mourns for her brother, knowing he couldn't be saved. But Dig and Poe propose a plan to save Quell. They will build a VR where they can separate the entity from Quell's DHF. Kovacs will act as the decoy, while Dig creates a firewall to separate the entity. With the plan set, Kovacs enters the VR after Quell. It's there that he finally learns the truth. Back when Conrad and the others first landed on the planet, they discovered that it was previously occupied by entities known as Elders. All that was left of their race were their young ones. Conrad didn't want to report this to the Protectorate, so he killed all these younglings and then he proceeded to conquer the planet. He didn't know that one Elded survived, and that Elder is the entity that's been hacking Quell's consciousness. It's been directing Quell to annihilate the Founders, and it's also the reason why Quell can seemingly control Angel Fire. Unbeknownst to them, Carrera and Takeshi have also infiltrated the construct under Danica's orders. Now that she knows that it's possible for a human to control the orbitals, she's more focused on capturing Quell. But Quell's mind is becoming more fragile due to the Elder's agitation. The VR construct shakes. Quell and Kovacs escape, while Takeshi is forced to leave Carrera behind after a rock pins him on the ground. With Quell out of the system, the Elder consumes Carrera to push through with its final plan, to destroy Harlan's world. Free of the Elder, Quell is horrified that the entity is let loose onto a breakable mind like Carrera's. But she's also aware that the Elder learns. It's already gathering materials so the Carrera's sleeve won't get destroyed when it controls the orbitals. Kovacs is also out, and he suggests they go to Danica Harlan, find her father, and surrender him to the Elder to appease its wrath. So he and Quell meet Danica. Most unfortunately, Conrad Harlan is dead, thanks to Danica shooting his stack. She always thought her father was too weak to rule the planet, so she relieved him of duty and took his place. Quell negotiates with Danica. They surrender Conrad's stack to the Elder and let it realize its vengeance is complete. Then Quell will leave the planet to continue her mission to bring down the Protectorate. Danica can relate to Quell's mission since she feels the same way about it. Danica agrees. So, Kovacs, Quell, and Danica go to the convergence point where the Angel Fire will strike, while Takeshi and Trep remain on the ground. Trep's neural coils will act as an interface for them to communicate with the Elder. At the top of the tower, Carrera is looking worse than ever as he prepares his materials. He turns around to see Quell and others there. They offer Conrad Harlan's stack, marking the end to the Elder's wrath. It seems to work as the Elder relaxes, until Danica double-crosses them. She shoots at Carrera, then at Quell and Kovacs. Rightfully, she meets her end when Carrera infects her stack, permanently killing her. The Elder goes on a rampage. Quell intends to bring the Elder back to her system and direct the Angel Fire to fire at her. Takeshi comes up and helps subdue Carrera. In a final move, Kovacs traps Carrera while Takeshi holds Quell down. Kovacs fatally shoots Carrera and allows the Elder to infect him. And then, the Angel Fire activates. It annihilates both Kovacs and the Elder, and this leads to the destruction of the orbitals that surround the planet. In the events that follow, Takeshi survives and gives a statement that Quellcrist Falconer has been annihilated too. In truth, Quell intends to go off-world to continue her mission. She has no attachment to Takeshi, as he's not the one she loves. The same goes for Takeshi too. They agree to take their separate paths. Dig over Nevermore Hotel after Poe finally agrees to reboot. After 3 months, he returns. It's revealed that before his reboot, he gave himself an order to back up a DHF so he can restore it once he returns. Dig smiles and tells Poe he better get the whiskey ready to welcome someone back. Who do you think is that person that Poe restores? Comment your thoughts down below and see you in the next recap.